It was
Oh, no, I'm doing it. I'm recording now.
okay. I'm going to record then too. Okay,
Cool.
here we go. All right.
Um, Tyson, so when I first discovered water divining or dowsing, I'm involved in a water technology company, and one day I was sitting at this desk and I just remembered that people use rods to find water, and I should know this. I'm a water technology guy. So uh, next thing I did was went online and bought some rods. And these are my first ever rods. They were copper ones with the
Yeah.
kind of the tube
Did you
there.
get those from me? Because that's my buddy makes those.
Quite possibly, I don't know where they came from actually,
Yeah.
but
My
I ended
friend
up.
Glenn makes that variety. So
Okay, yeah, and then I ended up going these ones which don't have the sheath on them, which they're just
yeah, just good old
yeah,
coat hangers will do.
yeah, and I kind of prefer using these now because I feel like it's like adding another layer to it, which I don't
Right.
really need, you know. So anyway, that happened, and I got immediate kind of reaction from it, and so I knew I could do it. And but then there's so many questions that come up, don't they? And I ended up going on Facebook and finding your page and joining the group and so on. And since then, so much has happened in a short space of time, only less than a year, right? And um, the stuff you're talking about, I was just completely new to, and it's mind blowing. But now I kind of understand a lot more about it, and I'm kind of ready to talk to you about stuff now. Whereas 8 months ago, I wouldn't have had a clue even what you were talking about most of the time, you know. So and then when was it? A few weeks ago, I got the call at about nearly midnight, just as I was about to get in bed. My sister called me and said, my dad's being taken to hospital. He's in an ambulance right now. And that's when I got in the car and I was speeding off towards the hospital, which was about a 20-minute drive. And on the way, while I'm speeding on the motorway, I voice messaged you on Facebook just to request assistance for something you can do, like to heal him, you know, in the situation, because we thought he'd had a stroke. He was sleeping. He was sleeping. He has sleep apnea. He was sleeping in the chair. Round about nearly 11 p.m., my sister and mum tried to wake him up, couldn't wake him up, and then they discovered he was breathing like this and was unconscious, you know.
Mm.
And then it took an hour for an ambulance to arrive.
Oh my goodness.
And in the meantime, they'd managed to roll him onto the floor and get him on his side, um, to keep his sort of breathing uh, as much as it could be, I suppose. But yeah, he was for a good hour, and it took another, say, 30 minutes because they took him to a stroke hospital, which was further away. So he was unconscious for an hour and a half and not breathing properly, right? So, you know, I was expecting this is it, you know. Um,
Mm.
I voice messaged you and said, you know, I couldn't think of anyone else to contact, especially at that time. You know, and you're in America, so you're in Canada, is it, or
Yeah.
America, somewhere
Yeah.
there, Pacific time. So you 8 hours behind me. So you picked it up in your daytime, and you replied back instantly saying, "I'm going to send some miracle healing to him." Right, and as soon as you, very shortly after you sent that message, do you know what happened on the motorway when I'm driving? The whole sky lit up with red lightning. Yeah. And I didn't never seen red lightning in my life, ever. You know, I'm 40 years old. So I've never seen red lightning ever before in
I've never
where
heard of red lightning.
I've never seen red lightning. The sky lit up with red lightning and it carried on for a good few minutes, and it's in the horizon because I'm driving on the motorway and I'm going to
Yeah.
turn off in a few miles, and it was just in the horizon, you know. And I thought, is that something to do with it? I don't know, but it was something. But anyway, what actually happened in the end, they got him into hospital, started resuscitation and so on. And after about an hour, they brought him out into the ward so we could see him. He wasn't conscious, but um, they then what happened after that is I got into the room with him and I did a pendulum healing for him, of whatever I could do in my level, you know. And the way I did it was I was running my hands with holding a pendulum in this hand and running my hand up and down his body. And when I got to his sort of stomach area, something happened with the pendulum, right?
Right.
And I followed your protocol with like clearing protocol, going anti-clockwise and then clockwise, you know, I did that, and then he's still unconscious, but I then gave him an acupressure massage, you know, just started pressing on various pressure points to try to get his circulation going. And he sort of, after that, he'd sort of seemed like he'd gone into a very peaceful state and was sleeping kind of calmly, you know. Before that, he was unconscious, and because of the CO2 levels in his blood, he's reaching like this and sort of hallucinating and stuff like that, you know, not with it at all. Anyway, after they'd done the test, they did a CT scan, they did a blood test, they looked at everything, the heart and so on. Nothing. He was completely fine. Not a single blip on his CT scan, not a single thing wrong with his bloods.
Wow.
And the consultant was like absolutely gobsmacked, and we were all completely gobsmacked, you know. So whatever you did, I mean, it could have been anything, but I'm sure this was something you did. So I want to thank you for that, you know.
Well, thank you. And I am involved in the Tao, and in the Tao, we're supposed to say thank you to Lao Mu, which is the divine feminine or the divine mother or God or the source of all that is, or however you want to describe it. So of myself, like Christ said, I do nothing, but through him, I can do everything. So whatever happened was at the other level. I was only the channel, and blessings to all concerned that whatever needed to happen happened. So
yeah,
and which comes back, Mark, to if you ask, you receive, right? So the fact that you asked allowed that to happen, and as well as and the fact that I was able to surrender and just say, you know, to the divine, do what you can do, then literally that's the basis of any miracle, is it just gets done, right? It doesn't we're just the conduit for the whole process.
Absolutely. I mean, I spoke to the consultant doctor that was looking after him, and he was quite amazed that he had nothing wrong with his CT scan, especially because they don't expect that. You know,
Does he even have any memories of what happened to him?
You know what? That's a really good question, because I never really asked him.
Yeah, ask him, because he was in an altered state, and God knows what he was downloaded with and what he learned, some of which he may be carrying into his conscious mind now as he's back. So things I'd look for, is he acting differently? I mean, he had what I would call a near-death experience, and we usually have a near-death experience because we need to alter the way that we see and interact with the world. So the near-death experience is like an aha or a wake-up call to our spirituality. So, I mean, you can be cautious about how you approach them about that, but it might be big for an interesting conversation.
Very good idea. I will ask him, actually. I've never, because of what was happening at the time, it wasn't ever something I...
Oh, it becomes overwhelming in and of itself.
And he's
so
fine.
Just a comment on the red sky. I do know, in working with Divine Mother Energies, I'm working with a group that gets together, and we've learned we're being gifted through a gentleman named David Adelson, who has had this connection with Divine Mother since he was a child, running these energies that she's allowing us to run. We're around somewhere up around, I don't know, in the hundreds of these energies. And I've discovered from that, when I take a turn at allowing myself to be the conduit for these energies, that all sorts of weather phenomena happen. So it doesn't, at one level, it doesn't surprise me that we have a weather phenomena to let us know that something is happening or something's taking place in the phenomena, right? So it sort of becomes it's starting to pour rain. Or like, for example, I did a workshop back east at the American Dowsing Society, and it was changing the planetary timelines of control. And I said, look, as a group, if we've done the work that we need to do, when we walk out of this building, it will start to rain. And when we walked out of the building, it started to rain, which is the whole cleansing energy that's going on, right? That for me, it's all in it gets demonstrated in the weather and the natural phenomena. It's a way of nature saying, I hear you.
Mm. Well, interestingly, the lightning was, if I knew kind of north, south, east, and west where I'm heading. I'm on the
Yeah,
motorway, and I know I'm going to turn off and go kind of that way.
yeah,
And that's where the lightning was, where the hospital direction was. It
wow,
wasn't there or behind me or anywhere else. It was
right,
there, where I was going. And I just don't know how that happened, but it was.
right.
I just wanted to feed that back because
Wow, that's pretty cool.
blown
I like that.
away, really blown away. Yeah, thank you for doing that. That's really inspired me to learn more about the healing side, as well as, because I was kind of very interested in water divining, because my view is that, given, simultaneously, since about 10 years ago, people are discovering the free energy, how to take it out of water, and so on. So I can see now that this is going to spread and develop, and it will be the energy of the future, but it relies on water. And the problem is therefore going to be availability of water, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
So,
I can see that obviously it is a problem in warmer climates in the Mediterranean, that people are getting 3 or 4 days of water per week, and they're rationed.
yeah,
Uh,
like look at California, huge problem, right?
Yeah, and I see also interesting things happening more close to home in our county. The Kent County Council has banned drilling underground boreholes, of new boreholes, because the aquifer levels are very low, and many are becoming brackish or salty.
Yeah,
And the fresh water seems to be running low, and abandoning lots of places, because my company treats about nearly 3,500 private water supplies in the United
wow,
Kingdom and Ireland. So every year we get reports of the same water source, and we can see it changing on a bigger
right,
scale. So I've got a bit of a bird's eye view what's going on with
right.
the water. And I see now it's even more important to uh, give thanks and gratitude and treat the water a bit.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we are water. I mean, yeah, we have physicality, but really what keeps us all together is the water, or it's, we're water beings. We're water animals inside of a skin or something. I don't know how to describe it, but
Mm.
yeah, you're absolutely right. Blessing water has, I think, as much power as any medicinal properties. You put a plant into water and make a distillation of that, or essential oil in water, or blessing it, has the power of any medicine that any human could ever create, right? Because what they're doing is they're making a synthetic copy of the original plant kingdom to do X, Y, or Z. So when you go back to the original source with the intention and the blessing, whereas the commercial is done with greed, right? And it's like putting the plant in bondage, right? And it's destroying, well, not all companies, but some companies literally destroy the very source of where they're going to get the stuff. So the point I'm trying to make is, when you bless the original plant kingdom and the water and put those two blessings together, the healing properties are really, really amazing for the body. It's like most of the water that we drink doesn't have the electrical charge that matches the charge of the cells. So the cell membrane can't open. The cell cannot get hydrated and flush itself, remove the toxins, and put the vibrational intent in at the cellular level. So lots of people drink tap water, but they're chronically dehydrated and don't know it, because the water's not doing anything. It's literally going through their body and not hydrating them. So, I mean, you're in for me, one of the most fascinating fields you could ever be in, which is water. I mean, it is really
Mm.
the basis of all of life, and understanding it in the multiple levels that you are, and learning how to be a dowser is very exciting. So one more comment before I forget. And I don't know if I can find it, and maybe it'll pop into my mind in a moment, but there's another source of water, and there's a master dowser. I don't know if he's still alive, who said that he would teach me. And I didn't have it just didn't all come together. There's a level of water beneath the water that we know of, or it's a deeper source of water. that you can train yourself to actually douse for. It's not sort of that it's necessarily impossible to get or anything like that. It's a different type of water. Like and there's a purity to that water that's at a level that it's untouchable. Like it was the water that you're talking about at the water table can be greatly influenced by, man-made interrupters and housing and, all that sort of stuff. But this deeper water is absolutely pure, crystal clear, stays that way because it's, encased in the pockets in the earth that allow it to be that. And when we tap into that, and I think, again, part of the reason we can't tap into it yet is we don't have the right energy alignment for that, because that's the type of water I think that you were talking about, and I don't know this is just intuition, that is so electrical charged that when you drink it, you'll literally feel it climb up your spine. And I know when working with Walter Baumgartner, who was working with water because he did all of his research with Schellberg,
Schellberg, yeah.
Yeah. Well, he developed electrical charge through water, and I was sort of like, I don't know how they did it. And I have all of his documents here, so I should go through and trying to figure it out. But anyway, I remember that they charged it, the water, and with electricity, and when you drank it, you could literally feel the Kundalini rise in your body.
Absolutely.
So there's something about electrically charged water, right?
Yeah.
That aligns the water to the cells into our parasympathetic nervous system that we get activated from.
Yes, and that's absolutely correct. All our research goes exactly with what you're saying. So we can look at bloods under microscope, and you can see where there's a charge in the water. You can see the blood cells moving nicely, and they're well spaced and flowing. Whereas with the other types of water, they're sticking together and it's lumpy, and it's like it does affect the blood. Yeah. And this water I think you're talking about is this deep well water, very deep well water. It has a hexagonal structure.
Right, exactly right. Yeah, it has sacred geometry right in the crystalline structure.
And it's also very pure, and it's also quite deuterium depleted as well.
Say that last word.
Deuterium depleted. So deuterium is a isotope of hydrogen. It's like the heavy hydrogen.
Right.
So it's double the atomic weight. And in the theory of the human cell, you have like a bit like a car. You have the fuel is the hydrogen, the exhaust is the deuterium. And then in the mitochondria, you've got this metabolic water that's actually stable water clusters. So that is actually resembles the characteristic of the deep well water with the
Wow, thank you. I mean, I'm all doing this by pure intuition and guidance, and here you are giving me the scientific background. So for me, this is really exciting, right?
Yeah, it's exciting because for me, like the science and the spirituality of water is all coming together as I've gone through the years and years and years of reading and learning about lots of stuff,
Yeah.
And it has for many of my colleagues and people I work with who have taught me stuff about water, and they've moved in the more spiritual direction as well. So, and that's happened to me because one thing that I've decided to do is become a water diviner. But, even 6 months ago, I wouldn't have told anyone that, just because of the, well, if you Google water divining or water dowsing, you're going to read the first page of Google, and most of the articles are going to be like, this is nonsense, this doesn't work, this is, we've tested it and it's shown to not work. And a lot of it comes from people like Richard Dawkins and establishment, skeptical scientists and stuff like that, and they don't know what I know. They haven't got the proof I've got,
Yeah, and they don't even know how to ask the questions. I mean, part of this is after, if you don't know the right question to ask, you're not going to get the answer. So, and actually, they're asking all the wrong questions because they're using the wrong methodology. They're trying to use their brain instead of their heart to be the analytical judge about what's correct and what isn't, which is only part of the picture.
Yeah, and I think, and so one thing I've done literally today is I've built a web page on my website for the company to talk about water divining, and I've put resources on there, including your website and your courses, so people who want to learn about it. I've answered, what is it? Does it really work? Why do people say it doesn't work? How can I learn this? So on. So I've made a page on our website so that people around the world might pick it up and know where to get access to resources to
Could
learn.
you type that address into the chat? I'd love that.
Yeah, I'm going to send you the link. And obviously, there's this book that I've downloaded from your.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And
he's my master, one of my master teachers. He's still alive, John Living.
Yeah, yeah. And this is all great stuff. And I've got a master who I managed to contact named John Baker, who's been master water diviner for 30 years. And when I discovered this, I found his videos on YouTube and then realized he only lives 20 minutes from me. So,
so he's mentoring you, right?
Yeah. Well, what he did was he said, okay, let's meet up. And then he invited me to this old churchyard, Forkham Manor churchyard. And we met there and he was like, you got your rods? Yeah. And I had these rods with me. And then he said, okay, go off in that field and you're looking for a man-made structure. Right. So I went off walking in the field. He was like, no, don't run. Just plod along, you know. And then I got the rods crossed at a certain point. It's like, okay, now get your flag, stick it there. And then he took me over sort of a few meters over that way. And then he said, oh, sorry, someone's trying to call me. Then he said, okay, now go again. And then in the end, I ended up finding a line in the middle of a field of a church, you know? And then he's like, okay, you found it. It's a wall and it's underground. He knew it was there. So he does a lot of archaeological work as well as water divining, you know. Although the water divining work is drying up since the county council have banned drilling underground boreholes. So there's no water divining work. So now he does leaks and he does, leaks and archaeological stuff, right?
Right.
So yeah, anyway, he's like, okay, you found a wall. Now I'm going to teach you to learn how deep is the wall. So he said, okay, get your rods, and then he showed me it, and I just copied him. He's like, okay, go to ground zero, and they cross, right? And then he goes, okay, what do you measure stuff in? Centimeters, meters, or inches, or feet? And I said, well, centimeters and meters normally. We go, okay, now just start counting from zero. And so I go, okay, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, okay, 90 centimeters. Is that right? He's like, yeah. Okay, it's 90, it's about a meter down, you know, that's how it, he's like, he showed me how to.
I never learned how to do that. He just taught me how to do that.
Yeah, I obviously John taught me how to do that, you know.
Yeah, so, I mean, I use a pendulum and just say, you know, is it more than this and less than that?
And
I do it that way, but I never used rods, so that's interesting.
Because I'm standing up now, and he's make the rods go to ground zero, which means now you're there on the ground, not up here.
Yeah, perfect.
And his techniques are fantastic because he's been doing it for 30 years and he's ironed out all of his mistakes, you know. Yeah. And then, but he did say to me, look, this is very much a personal journey. I'm going to show you some basic techniques that I use. And funnily enough, all his techniques worked for me as well. Yeah. And so then he showed me about how to find the flow rate, how to find the direction, whether it's potable or not, these kind of things. And there's a lot of detail, understanding the geology and stuff. He knows all of that. You know, John Baker is fantastic water diviner. And so, yeah, so he's kind of guided me along a little bit and helped me get to where I am now with it. So I can do it, you know, but then I tried to do, from that point, the journey then continued, which was one day I was looking for my daughter's slippers. We've got a wooden floor that gives you splinters sometimes if you walk on it barefoot, and the kids do that all the time. So I'm like, where's your slippers? Okay, we couldn't find them anywhere. I was like, right, rod. Okay, now, and then John taught me to say from where I'm standing. Yeah. Because he's like, you've got to put yourself in a place and at a time, you know, from where I'm standing now, and now is such an important word that he taught me in the question, because water could have been there 100 years ago, but it's not there now. And the reason he learned the now word the hard way, so he found some water that could have been there, maybe it wasn't there anymore, and then the client ended up spending a lot of money drilling to find out there was no water there, you know. But you know, since the last 20 years, he's been nailing it every time. And he's got letters from schools and water companies and archaeological foundations. He's got the letters thanking him for saving them thousands of pounds worth of leaks. And, you know, and yet on the fake news, you've got people saying it doesn't work. You know?
So can you ask him about this deep water or or this charged water or whatever we want to call it? I can't remember the technical term that the dowser was using, but you know that would be really beneficial for him as well, because if he can say prove to the county that he's not using surface water, and he might be able to help bring water from a deeper level, right? That's not going to. Anyway, something to think about.
Yeah, I mean, our county is full of chalk as well, so there's not a lot to even practice with. You know, to go out and try to. The key, I think, is to go out and do it and practice. And there's not a lot here to do. So I then realized I found my slippers, my daughter's slippers, and then I found my car keys, and then my dog ran away, and then I went out. I'm literally driving with one hand, holding a rod, and the rod's telling me where to go, and I found my dog. Right, I found my dog. So yeah, I know it's working for me, and then I realized this is how magic works.
Yes, it's the basis of all magic. Absolutely right.
Yeah, so you know, Darren Brown and all these, you know, illusionists, magicians, hypnotherapists, whatever. I tried it by just doing a simple thing where I'd ask someone to think of a number, and then instantly I'd get the number that they were thinking of if they were kind of giving it to me. And what I discovered is my children, I could see the number like written in front of my eyes so clearly, but with an adult, especially if they were thinking, this guy's an idiot or this isn't going to work, you know, I'd have struggle getting it. And I knew when I was guessing, and I knew when I could see it, you know. And so with my children, like every time I'm like, think of a number, and they think of, say, 9, and I say 9, and I see the 9 like in with my vision, or like well, not, you know, it's, you know what I mean, you just see a number pop up, and it comes up and it goes really quickly, you know. And that's what I've been doing, and it worked. And I realized this magic thing, trying to get the number someone's thinking of, taught me how to be in the right dowsing state, because that was the hardest thing to get right all the time. So you know, I'm getting more accurate, and then I learned my own method that just worked for me, and I don't think anyone else could. Everyone might have their own system, right? But then I kind of learned this from Darren Brown, because what he would do, I'd watch what he did, and he would distract people first, right? And then he'd ask the question, and you know, and then so I learned to distract myself by thinking, right, what am I doing tomorrow? Right now, you know. So I'd get distracted from what I was about to do by thinking of something completely random. Then I would just imagine a black screen and a cursor flashing like the old MS-DOS, you know, with nothing on it, just a cursor flashing, you know, like in the Matrix, you know. And then I'd imagine me typing the question, and so it was being written as I asked the question, and therefore, because I'm focusing on typing a question in my mind, then nothing else is coming in, no negative programs or no other thoughts or anything to create the rubbish in, rubbish out sort of effect with it all. So I use that now. I think of it like 100% computer programming. I distract myself, clear everything out, imagine the black screen, type the question. The question has to be really good. It has to have the things like now and other specifics in it, you know, for it to be a good answer. And then I'm like, yes, now I'm getting accurate dowsing, you know.
That's fantastic. I love that technique. I like it a lot. I call dowsing training wheels for guidance on demand.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and I want to now. So what I want to do now is like take this and make it part of what we do as a company, as well as try to promote the teaching of this, because I think it's an essential skill for the people of the future, because their problems are going to be strongly water related.
Right.
Well, another interesting thing about water is, like, you know, we're dealing with private water supplies, and there was one holy well in Wales, and I can't tell you the name of them because we signed an NDA with them.
Yeah.
But they're a charity. It's a very, very famous holy well in Wales, and the water quality was exceptional.
Hmm.
Best I'd ever seen from any lab report I'd ever been sent. Right? I thought, wow,
Right.
this water quality is phenomenal. And they test it once per month because pilgrims go there and collect the water, and they also bathe in the spring there. Right? It's a holy
Hmm.
well. And what had happened is, in a very short space of time, and this is unusual unless something collapses underground, but in a very short space of time, we're talking about 4 or 5 months. The water quality every month was getting worse and worse and worse to the point where it was toxic, full of lead, aluminium, and heavy metal, and so on. So they closed down the holy well. Right. And then they obviously went online and found the water treatment company and contacted us. And then we're like, at the time, there was a lady working with us who's a geomancer. And so she's like, well, why don't we try to do this and this and affect the water quality there through geomancy, right? And I was like, how, you've got to filter it. You have to have something physical. You can't do it like that. But she convinced me otherwise, actually. So anyway, we ended up telling them that, okay, you need this treatment and this filter and blah, blah, blah. So we designed a filter system for them. They put it on the tap where people fill up the bottles and take it home, right? And then they reopen the well with the treatment in place. But then behind the scenes, we were doing sort of geomancy to kind of pray and ask for forgiveness and gratitude to the well. And then lo and behold, what happened? The well's gone back to being really good. Like, how did that
Yeah.
happen?
It
Got
makes
nothing.
perfect sense.
Um,
Perfect sense.
and so that blew me away because now I realize, oh, actually, people might not need to even buy any equipment anymore to change their water quality if they do so.
That's right. There's also some work that we did here. My partner just went out of the room, so I don't know if I can. Hypochloric acid. Have you heard of that?
Hypochloric acid, yeah, yeah.
It actually purifies the water just like chlorine does, but it has no deleterious effects on the body whatsoever. You don't have
It's
to take it out. It actually
ozone.
feeds the plant.
Yeah, it's ozone.
Actually, it is being used here and certified by Health Canada for doing treatment for water for animals, and they're finding that
Mm-hmm.
the animals need no vet bills, and and the production is like 30 to 40% higher as a result of treating the water
Mm.
this way. And we are negotiating, trying to work with public health here because we're part of a strata, a small strata. According to our regs here, if there's a small strata, you have to have your water treated and all the rest of that. And we're saying, no, we don't want chlorine. So we're negotiating, trying to put this system in place.
Mm.
And the product, when it's produced, it will clean it will deal with any bugs. It's actually what they use for flesh-eating diseases, right? It's the
Mm.
only thing that treats flesh-eating disease. So you could wipe down everything in the hospital. And in fact, when you use it on your vegetables, bringing them back from the store,
Mm.
they last a week longer.
Mm. Mm.
So really interesting results from doing this, right?
Yeah, I mean, ozone therapy is a thing. I mean, and I think if you combine it with hydrogen as well, then you're kind of oxidizing and then bonding it with hydrogen as well.
Right.
So you can oxidize yourself and stress your body out with the oxidation, which creates a response, to
Yeah, I mean, I've seen inoculations of O3, right?
yeah, yeah.
And the one person, they were just like they run. They just flushed right out, and it was like there was an internal fire as it dealt with all the inner stuff. I mean, you got to know what you're doing if you're going to. I mean, and
Yeah,
it's actually illegal to do it
that's
into the
right.
field. You
Yeah, I mean,
shouldn't do it in vain. But when I saw it done, it was the results are dramatic, and the healing is incredible. So I have an ozone generator in my basement. I don't necessarily use it very often, but
mm.
I understand ozonated water and the power of it for healing, right?
Yeah, I think if you use it in the right measure, like anything, it can have good results. It will. I think the best way is to use it, and then, you could do a day of oxidation and a day of hydrogen, and you're kind of, the two are working together
Together,
well.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So yeah, it's interesting. It's not something we've done, ozone, before, but we know about it, and it's like it's got a application. I think we're dealing with excuse me, we're dealing with medical practitioners who are using this to treat patients and clients
right.
uh, under their guidance more so
Yeah.
than on their own.
And I have, I have a professional ozone generator, right?
Mm,
So theoretically for research purposes or whatever you want to say,
mm.
right?
Yeah, I mean, all the people I know using ozone all have cancer, so that's why they're doing it. So
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, that's how that's how I recommend it be used for as well, right?
mm,
And
yeah,
other
um,
well,
and so like there is with water divining. I don't know if you've ever read this little book by Hamish Miller, the little book on. Um,
no, I don't think I have. I
uh,
know about Hamish, but I haven't read that book.
well, it was like it's got a very interesting background history about how it came to England, at least. Pioneers about Elizabeth the First in the year 15 something or other invited some master dowsers from Germany to come to England to help them exploit the mineral resources available in England, right?
Oh, interesting. What's the name of the book again?
This book is called The Definitive Wee Book on Dowsing, A Journey Beyond Our Five Senses by Hamish Miller.
The
Um,
definitive book on what? Dowsing?
it's the definitive wee book on dowsing.
Ebook.
We, as in W-E,
Oh, we small.
yeah,
Yeah.
small book on dowsing. And it's A Journey Beyond Our Five Senses by Hamish Miller, who's passed away now, but he was,
Yeah, he was a master dowser, amazing guy.
yeah. And in here, he talks about a German mineralogist and meteorologist called Georgius Agricola published De Dira Metallica, which was precise dowsing techniques used in mining. And then that was in that was in 15 something or other. And then Queen Elizabeth I of England got wind of the valuable fork stick method of finding metal ores through Agricola's work, and then introduced German miners to help develop England's resources. They brought their knowledge of dowsing with them, and by 1660, Charles II, recognizing the importance of the art to the financial success of the mining industry, demanded to know everything about the operation of the baguette divinatoire, a splendid name for a dowsing rod. So yeah, anyway, there's some background history in this which is interesting, but obviously the reason why there's fake news, I think, now about dowsing in general and saying discrediting it is because I don't think some people want everyone to know how to find minerals and things.
Yeah, we don't want, and it's same with in the healing profession. We don't want people to know how that they can heal themselves.
Well, I disagree. Well, they should know
I know, of
exactly.
course, they should know, but we
Yeah.
can't make money from that.
Well, I don't
I
know
mean,
if.
actually, we can. I mean, this is the irony. I just told a buddy that that they spend as much energy trying to stop things that are beneficial, and realize that if they actually, because of the karmic consequences they're creating for themselves, and they put as much energy into enlightening people, right, they would be just as wealthy, and it would be less effort. But they don't understand that yet.
Yeah. Well, anyway, now my role, I think, is to promote water divining and try to get more people learning it from a younger age, children as well, so that they're equipped for future challenges, with water
Yeah,
problems. And I think it's going to be a key emergency service like skill that people need to have, and it's helped me progress in so many ways. And I underwent a lot of changes when I started tuning into this frequency, of dowsing.
right.
The first thing, just to let you know, is I I suddenly got very little sleep, but was very energetic at the same time. So I'd wake up at very early time for me, and feel like, completely wide awake or like that. And I was going to, I did my 21-day clearing at the Stone Circle. Remember is right by my house, Um, and there was a question I wanted to ask you yesterday, and I was conscious that I kind of was hogging all the questions. But um, this stone circle near my house, right? This is what's happened. Uh, Myself and another person, a friend of mine, we made wishes there independently, and those wishes came true very quickly, like within a day or two,
Mm.
and then that really blew me away. When I discovered my wishes came true, I made 2 wishes there, and they came true, right? And it's unbelievable. And I told a friend of mine who really is more into meditation and stuff than I have, and has been for many years, and he's very spiritual, And he came down, and he made 2 wishes there as well, funny enough, and his wishes came true, right?
Wonderful.
It's wonderful, but then I was like, got a bit worried, and I asked my kung fu master about it all, and he said, "Look, don't do that. Don't make wishes. Like, go there and do your qigong and tai chi and stuff, and get the earth energy, but don't make wishes there." And I said, "Why not?" He's like, "Because I can't explain it to you, but it's kind of like there is a cost to doing that, and it's kind of like selling your soul in some way, but that's the only way I can explain it to you." And I said, "Oh, okay." And so I asked some other people, and they said, "Well, it's okay as long as you give something back, or do some gratitude, or something along those lines, right?" But I wanted to ask you this, right? Have you ever experienced anything like this before, especially with stone circles or anything like that, or heard anything like this? And what do you think?
Great question. I don't really know the answer for it. I wish that my friend who built stone circles was still alive, and my druid friend, because I would ask him that. I do know from what I know from him, uh, is that a stone circle, that in a stone circle, that there are certain stones for certain people, for certain circumstances, that you'll be attracted to that stone. So that the resonance between you and that stone is absolutely perfect for whatever it is that you need in that moment. I believe that the stone circles were created from a methodology that predates, any civilization we know. I think that it actually has to do similar to what we have here with medicine wheels. That some of the description of a medicine wheel, excuse me, is like it's like a rotary dial phone to their home planet. So I think that a stone circle is literally an interdimensional portal that was created to connect to sources and energies beyond our kin. I think that if you were to go to Ireland, for example, you would have no doubt having people say, "Oh, by all means, laddie, go ahead and do that," or whatever the Irish accent is, because that technology is just so ingrained in who they are, right? The fairy kingdom and all the rest of it. That you as British people have that Celtic tradition that's part of in your blood has been buried deeper than, say, the Irish, so it's harder for you to connect to it. But the stone circle predates all of that. You're going really back to that Celtic original earth religion that's connected to you being aligned with that point. Like you said, the first thing you do when you douse is saying, "I'm here," right? Like, so when you go into the stone circle and you say, "I'm here," you are aligning yourself with the cosmology of your place, that point, aligned with the stars and aligned with the alignment of those stones with the stars. So that's literally a portal. And can you manifest things? Absolutely you can. I think you can do healing, you can do pretty well anything you want. I mean, think about it. I mean, in your backyard, you have the ancient technology that connects you to everything and anything that you could ever imagine, right? And the more you even meditate in there and ask, the more you're going to receive. It's like it's like an interdimensional library you have next door to you. I mean, what could be that's exciting.
It's exciting. It also kind of scared me a little bit because I'm like, wow.
Don't get scared. Don't get scared. Look, here's two qualifiers that I use. One is I'm walking into this circle or whatever. I want to abide by the law of one, which is do no harm to myself and everybody else. So that's the first basic principle. And secondly, I'm always asking for the most benevolent outcome for all concerned. So I don't want to step on anybody's toes, any ancestors, any lineage, past, present, or future. Those two things are my boundaries, are the sacred vessel that I create wherever I go. They keep me out of trouble, right?
Yeah. And then
so I would walk into the stone circle. I would even introduce myself, and I would even douse on a scale of 0 to 100. And you could do that right now. How awake are you as a stone circle, right? Are you ready to have human interaction? Can you and I have a conversation? And use your dowsing questions and tools to literally talk to it as a living entity, because guess what? It is a living entity. And I bet you dollars to donuts that it's going to be really excited to have a human pay attention to it after all these years, right? It's like you're waking a giant up and saying hello, saying, hey, let's have a conversation here. Like, what's happening in your world? I mean, one of the things that Ivan Macbeth said to me is they located this big, beautiful stone. They were going to put it in a circle, and they tried to move it, and they got levers and bars and everything, and they couldn't move this stone. So Ivan threw up his hands and said, hey, just give me a sec. So he walked down, and he sat beside the stone and meditated. And he said, what's the problem? He said, look, I've been lying here for centuries, right? Nobody's paid any attention to me whatsoever. And now you come along and you want me to drag me around. I don't know who you are or what you want to do. You never introduced yourself. You never told me what's going on. You just want to drag me around. Oh, he says, I'm sorry. Let me tell you I want to put you in this position in a sacred circle to do X, Y, and Z. He said, when we went to move that stone, he said it was just like effortless, right? Because the stone and had the honor of being communicated with. So I'm telling you this story because all those stones in that circle have this conversation for centuries, for God knows how many, between each other, waiting for humans, because they were built for humans to step into that technology and commune with them again.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, have they got something to do with UFOs as well, do you think? Or
well, they're interdimensional portals. And where did these other races come from? I mean, the First Nations here talk about the star people, right? They're the star nations that immigrated here to planet Earth to do certain jobs. And their circle, right? Their medicine wheel is a way to commune back to the home planet, or to talk to their ancestors or whatever. They're just, about how they're doing, and to receive guidance about how to proceed. So yes, I do believe that there's an extraterrestrial connection. Absolutely.
And what my friend who came down to visit and went and made a wish there, shortly after that happened, I think it was a week, one of the wishes manifested after 2 days, and that was a similar time frame to what I had.
Yeah.
The other wish she made happened later, but then I think it was about a couple of weeks or so after we went there together. He messaged me during the day and said, something just happened. I got contacted by the stones. And I was like, what do you mean contacted? Were you dreaming? Oh, no, I'm wide awake. I just got contacted by the stones. And they said, they're assuring me it's going to happen. Right. And then I was like, okay. And I still at that point didn't ask him what he'd wished for. And then after I'd asked a few people, and I've asked my Sifu, I asked Sophia Stewart, who wrote the Terminator and Matrix books, The Third Eye. I asked her, she's a shaman, and she gave me her view on it. and said, look, there's nothing wrong with making wishes there, if, like as you said, if they're benevolent, if they're for universal preference, for good, and but you have to give thanks and gratitude back,
Absolutely, you do. Absolutely, you
um,
do.
yeah, so we're going back there to do that. And um, yeah, it's just an amazing phenomenon, and I thought, really something interesting is going on there. And this whole, it seems now, after speaking to you yesterday, that this is a lot more simple than I think it is, sort of, I
This
think it's really simple. It's about,
it is. Yeah, the thing is, it is super simple. I mean, that's what I teach. This is straightforward. Don't mess it up. Don't get it complicated. It's once you understand the principles, they're so simple. That's why we don't get it, right? We want
yeah,
to complicate our world. So yeah, keep it simple. So what I say is, when you wake up in the morning, what are you allowing yourself to believe? Because if you believe that you need to do this and this and that and whatever before you can get this, or that you will, then you're going to have to do all that stuff before. But if you believe that I can go to the stone circle and make a wish and it manifests, and that's your belief system, off to the stone circle you go and make the wish, and boom, and there it happens. It's your choice, right?
hmm,
Your choice.
yeah,
How do you want to interact with the world around you?
yeah.
The beauty is that when you're in the stone circle, you're aligned with everything in that time frame, and in that there's a 0 point in the middle of that stone circle, right? That is timeless, right? It literally is an interdimensional portal. It's the center of the tube torus, and because of that, you can move into any dimension, time frame, or whatever that you want.
What I did there was I got my archaeological flags and the rods and went there one day and just looked for the ley lines, and I discovered they actually went in a spiral like this.
Mhm.
So, and there is a point where it's the center, which actually isn't where they've put the standing stones.
Yeah.
That I think was 6 meters to the right. So the center where I doused for the ley lines came into a spiral, and it ended up 6 meters to the right of where the standing stones are. So anyway, this site got messed up and I think moved around, and things happened over the years. But I think there's a vortex in the earth,
Yeah.
spirals round, and it goes into a point there. And then I found the point, and then when you stand there, something happened. I went there once. I had a migraine actually, and I went and stood at that point where I knew where I doused was the center point, not where the stones are.
Mm-hmm.
The standing ones. It's somewhere else. It's on a slope.
Mm-hmm.
And there's other stones lying around. So if you stand there, and then I just like noticed straight away my headache disappeared instantly, and I was like, wow, this is the point right here.
Well, there is such a thing. I'm going to call it a heel stone, but I don't know if that's the right terminology. But for example, in my medicine wheel, I have a person who's totally in love with stones and rocks. And when you went to her apartment, she had them all the way placed around the edge of her apartment, and every rock she talked to and where it wanted to be. And so when she came to our medicine wheel, she said, I'm talking to the rocks, and they're going to put them where they want to be. There is one rock that's definitely outside of the wheel. I call it sort of what I just told you. I can't even remember what I said, the heel stone or whatever. It's outside of the circle, right? It's sort of like a pointer. And maybe that's what's happening there. I mean, maybe the whole vortex there, that's the point at which you activate it. It's sort of like that's the on-off switch, is where you were outside of that circle.
Mm.
And don't forget, this is ancient technology. So, and in the priestly, levels of consciousness at that time, they may have designed it so not every Tom, Dick, and Harry could go in there and do something crazy, right? So they may have done this here and then had a heel stone over there, which if you knew how to use this technology, you would know that you needed to be there in order to activate this over here, right?
Mm. This is
So ask. These are questions you could ask. You just
yeah,
doubt.
yeah. This site is some ancient technology, and it's mind-blowingly interesting. And
Yeah, map it out. go for it. I mean, you got a pet project right literally out your door. I mean,
Yeah, it's 10 minutes walk out my back door. And the weird thing is, hardly anybody knows about this place.
don't, well, then keep it to yourself as you,
Yeah, yeah,
like at this point, right? Like,
yeah,
don't talk about it too much so that you have the container there for you can have that relationship with it, right? In the beginning of it. And then if you want to open it up or whatever, goes for it. But right now you are waking the giant up, right? And
yeah.
making and it will be its first relationship with humans in a long time, you and your buddy. Um,
Mm.
so treat it with respect, right? You don't want it to be inundated by everybody trampling all over
That's right. Yeah, I
called
mean,
the waking giant.
there's currently the site is visited by druids and pagans and doing
Well, they
hanging.
obviously know something, right?
They know something. The once I was there and I met one of my neighbors, a very old lady that lives at the bottom of the road, Pilgrim's Way, by the way. Another interesting thing, I live on
Pilgrim's Way.
I live on Pilgrim's Way, which is the
Yeah,
route where, the Chaucer Canterbury Tales, where the
yeah,
pilgrims went through that, and they went through this place,
yeah.
So something else. There's so little information about it. That's the trouble. And I think where there was information in the past, we're talking, maybe half a century or more ago. I think that information got, you know,
Yeah, it
uh,
got buried. It got
buried,
buried
suppressed,
for
or burnt, or lost.
yeah. Well,
And
it's still available in the Kashuk. It's just like literally available through that
right,
stone circle. You'll be able to connect to all that. And I
Akashic.
mean, I can see you literally mapping this out, and I can see a book in this too. So
Mm.
go for it.
The Kashuk record was another thing because one of the first thing I did when I joined your Facebook group was I posted the first post I made was to request assistance with my older brother who's diagnosed schizophrenic, right? And I posted on the group saying, does anyone in this group have any experience of, in helping with schizophrenia, right? And any success, or what can I do? Nothing's working, and check this out. So one person in the group replied and said, PM me, I can help. And I said, great, thank you. And I PM'd him on Facebook, and he asked for his full name, for my brother's full name. And then he said, ask me 4 questions about him, what you want to know. And so I said, okay, I did it, right? And he said, fine, give me some time and I'll come back to you. And then he came back to me and said, okay, it's done now. Just let me know, how's your brother. I then thought, okay, I rang up my mum and dad and said, oh, how's my brother? What do you mean? Oh, well, what have you been doing? How's he been today? What's he doing? Oh, we just went, I took him to his hospital appointment and nothing. We just came home, and it was midday. So it was just the morning. But he was in India, so he was hours ahead. And I woke up early in the morning, as I told you, when I first started dowsing and I joined your group.
Yeah.
I was waking up, I was having a few hours sleep and I'd feel full of energy and wide awake, and I was going to the stones and doing my 21-day clearing there. So something was changing in me physically, mentally. I was lots of
So you were
change.
doing the 21-day clearing at the circle?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. So you were clearing the circle at the same time of any non-beneficial energies in that circle. That's
Um,
amazing.
if that was included in the PDF, then yeah, I was without knowing. Because, by the way, I was reading this 21-day clearing without having a clue what half the stuff was on about. What the
You don't need to know what it is.
I didn't know what it is, and then I started googling what is the crystal gene matrix and who is
I don't
our.
know what the crystal gene matrix is. So I was reading I didn't realize we had such a long conversation together. So I was just reading that before we jumped on, which is a nice thing about Messenger. We can go back and, oh yeah, okay, we talked about this and then we talked about that.
Yeah.
So yeah, those definitions would be very valuable if you have any time or you have any links to them,
Well,
because a lot of this is just guidance, and a lot of it's from other master dowsers, or people have said, got hold of me and said, you need to include this, right?
yeah. I mean, there's stuff about wireless and but now there's 5G coming in, so maybe that needs to go in there. I don't know, but anyway,
Yeah.
point is, I went through the process of just like, I'm reading this, but I don't understand what I'm saying. So I need to understand it, so I get it, and then I say it with more conviction, or with more meaning. So I started Googling all these things, and I found stuff out about what is crystal gene matrix, and people making videos on YouTube or publishing some web pages about some of the keywords in there. All of this was completely new to me. It was like reading a foreign language. So that's what happened. Anyway, back to the guy. Then my dad was like, well, your brother. I was like, well, he has been really quiet today, by the way. He hasn't said a word to anyone. I was like, is that normal? He's like, no, no. He's talking to himself all the time, all the time. Anyway, that morning it was very quiet. So that was the only observation, right? So I went back to the guy on Facebook and said, we haven't noticed anything different other than he's been very quiet today. My dad drove him in the car. Normally he's talking to himself, but he wasn't. He was completely silent. That's abnormal for him, right? So something was different, one thing. And then, then he proceeded. I said, he's just very quiet. No, there's been no other observation. And then he said, okay. Then he answered my 4 questions, right? So he said this, and this blew me away. In 2003, he was put under a spell by a vampire. And that was the answer to the question, how did he become schizophrenic? My first question. Sorry, what caused him to become schizophrenic? My first question. And lo and behold, well, let's just stick with that question first. I got all the answers to the 4 questions, but then after I rang back up and I was like, look, can I speak to my brother now, right? They put him on the phone. I was like, did something happen in 2003 when you went on a date with a girl? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, well, what do you mean? He's like, don't you remember? And I was like, no. He's like, he met a girl online on a dating website. They went out on a date, had a nice time, whatever. At the end of the date, they snogged each other, they kissed, and then he went off to his house and she went off to her house, right? Then my brother's telling me, and then I got in bed and I effing died. That's in his words, I effing died. And I was like, what do you mean died? He was like, all the energy left my body. I was paralyzed. I couldn't move. Don't you remember? And I was like, no, I don't remember. He's like, I was in bed for a week. Don't you remember? I was like, no, I didn't. I thought, I don't remember, but at the time, if I did remember, I thought you could have been sick or had the flu or something like that. I didn't know anything about this date or whatever that you went on. But this guy's answer was he was put under a spell by a vampire. And then I'm reading at the same sort of time, I'm reading, doing a 21-day clearing and reading about vampires in here. And I'm like, wow, what, like, and then I'm like, I'm asking the guys, like, what's a vampire? Like, what are they doing? They've been like, she's been draining his energy since that date, right? And she's also locked him in his room. And that was another thing he couldn't have possibly known. He wouldn't come out of his bedroom, right? He would go from his bedroom to the kitchen, grab a cup of tea, go back to his bedroom, or then go from his bedroom to the toilet and back to the bedroom. That was all he ever did in his life. That since that time, And I would beg him to drag him out of there. I'd say, come to the forest with me. I'll pick you up. I'll drop you off. He's like, no, I don't want to go. No. It was all that. You couldn't drag him anywhere. And he said, it's okay. I've lifted this now. I've lifted this spell, right?
You told him that?
No, he told me that, right? That he'd lifted the spell, right?
Who told you that?
The guy who responded to my request for assistance.
Okay, I was just hoping your brother said that.
No. In India, the guy in India, right? So, yeah, and I was like, okay. Then when I went back, I was like, you want to come out with me? He's like, yeah, let's go. I was like, wow. I was like, I'm blown away. Right now he's still schizophrenic. He's still talking to entities and whatever he's doing. Now, since I discovered your material and started trying to digest this and learn this, some of the things that he says are inspired. It's like they've come from another level of consciousness, right? Much higher level of consciousness, because he said things about archangels and things like that, and that's also in the script, the 21-day clearing. So sometimes my brother comes out with things that are just inspired, and yet other times he'll talk about complete you know, in my frame of reference, any like things that are not real, like fantasies, you know, like, oh, I've just bought you this car, and he'll ring me up, right, and say things like, I've just bought you 100 houses, and you know, just things like that. In his, maybe in some other dimension he has done that, and I now own 100 houses and a Ferrari or something, but I don't now.
Yeah, you need to plug into that, right?
Yeah, I mean, so, but some of the stuff he said was about archangels and all this stuff, and he was like, at night I turn into a 6 foot tall blonde haired archangel, and I was like, what? And then anyway, this guy, I said to him, why did she do this to him? And he said to me this, because your brother has a really good heart, and these entities target people like that to take their energy, you know. And even in his state of schizophrenia and sickness now, with his delusions and whatever, he's always trying to do something to help you, you know, like he'll ring me up and say, I did this for you, I've done that, I've done this for you, you know. It's never for him, you know, it's always for me, you know. It's heartbreaking almost, you know. But I was just like, okay. And then I asked the guy, how did you find out all of this? And he's like, I used the Kashuk record. And I was like, oh, okay, what is that now? So, yeah. What is that?
You're onto something that you're exactly, I'll just give you some synchronicity of where you are in your quest for that understanding with your brother is where I am. And let's not just say schizophrenic, but talking about possession with people that I can't break them free from their whatever's going on. Right? In other words, I can clear the entity or whatever, or demonic possession, whatever you want to call it, but they get re-inhabited. So I know, and I'm looking for it now, to work with people that have the ability to go into the Kashuk record or call it into their soul family agreement about why they chose to have this experience in this incarnation. Now, for them on the soul level, all experiences are relevant. There's no judgment, right? There's no good, bad, or indifference like we have here. For them, it's an experience, and all experiences are valid. It doesn't matter what we think about it on this plane. So my intuition tells me that if I know why they made that soul decision, right, or what it is in their Kashuk record about what they want to work on, and I help them understand that, right, then I'm hoping that that will break them free from that bondage. Because anything in our energy field that shows light up that's demonic or non-beneficial or whatever you want to call it is because there's something for us to learn from that entity that we haven't figured out. Once we learn that, our energy goes up. This entity has no more way to approach us. There's no need for it. You've literally freed this entity to go and do whatever that entity needs to do in its soul evolution, because you've graduated from the lesson that entity is providing for you. So I don't know if that makes any sense to you, but I just wanted you to know that you're at a crossroads in your investigation, at the same crossroads, slightly different than I am looking at. And I'm just going to pick up a book here. This may help with your brother. It's called Your Multiple Souls. Okay. This is research done by Ruth Rendley. We are working with angel energies and Divine Mother. She teaches how to work with the seraphim angels and to run these energies. And when she came out with this book, did the research, and many people were offended by the idea that there could be multiple souls inhabiting one body. So in my world, I think that schizophrenia has to do with more than one soul inhabiting one body. And so if you understand that concept and begin to think about it, then, okay, who are these souls and what do they want? And, is that soul that's maybe causing the schizophrenic aspect? Because you're saying sometimes there's clarity there that he's saying that is a purity beyond understanding, and in another moment is like pure gibberish. So the being with pure gibberish, does it want to be inhabiting that body? Does it know how to go to the light? What's it doing there? Is there any way that we can help it do what it needs to do to get on with its soul evolution? You see where I'm going with it? Yeah, so there's all sorts of ways in which we can look at this and rather than treating it as a disease, we treat it as a spiritual learning that your brother is going through. So if we can help him understand what that learning is and cut the learning through to the quick, right, and get it done, we can free him.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of stopped seeing him as a person with schizophrenia anymore, but
Yeah, I mean, it's only diagnosis, and
yeah, he's a person who I think is inhabited by different entities in some way.
exactly.
There's several there, you know, and one of them happens to just on occasion come out with this inspired, almost like revelations he's giving me, you know.
Yeah,
But say a year ago or 2 years ago, when he'd say stuff like that, that would be the same as the gibberish for me
right.
until I met your content and discovered this, right?
Yeah,
So then I realized actually he's not sort of sick in that way, but physically he is, right? Because he's unwell and he chain smokes and you know is still not well,
right,
physically in his physical body,
right.
but he's got the best heart of anyone I know, and but he's where he is, and I think he'll probably always be like that. But I kind of don't see him as a sick person.
Yeah, well, just remember, I know you probably already know this, but you can clear him every time you clear yourself. You just include your brother, right?
Mm,
And you'll
yeah.
see significant difference by just doing that.
Yeah, I mean, when that we have seen a big jump up in him. He can come out now. All this stuff. He will come out of his room. Just the attention at the time I'm sort of giving him maybe was helpful in that way. To
Yeah,
try and request assistance for him and do stuff for him, and I'm trying to get him into my house now to live with me because my parents are getting older, so
yeah,
they're going to find it more difficult to look after him. But I want him, and
right.
I want to work with him to see what we can do, and I'm trying to learn all about this soul and dimension and other stuff, and I'm so intrigued by all of it, and I keep coming back to the stones all the time because I think that holds some secret key to a lot of things. And we were talking about the gate of the gods, and why have they built a door in a stone?
Yeah,
It doesn't make any sense, right? But then we talked about 0 point energy, you know, reversing that into some portal you can go through somehow, And if I recently read, someone asked me, "Have you read Celestine Prophecy?" Book James read.
yeah, go for it. I mean, I haven't read that for years, but yeah. In fact,
Yeah,
here's another rinky-dink coincidence: is that I just got off the mastermind that I said that I was on, and I'm on the mastermind with a fellow named Corey Poirier, who is doing a show that's about to be produced or about to be released with James Redford.
wow,
So how's
interesting.
that for a coincidence, right?
Yeah, that's a coincidence. I mean, someone said, "Oh, have you read Celestine Prophecy?" And I hadn't, so I read it recently, and I was like, "Wow, this is all making sense as well about uh, the energy." And then I tried it. Right, I was like, "Okay, talk to the sea, talk to the tree,
Yeah,
give it love, and then you fill up with the energy, and it works, right?"
absolutely, it works,
It,
and that's what I'm telling you to do in the stone circle. I mean,
yeah,
you've
yeah,
got the you've got the technology right there on the massive level to be able to do that, right? Just
yeah.
don't talk to the stone people, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is it. So I'm sort of there, and I am communicating with them consciously now, and it's interesting, So, and other stuff, I was telling you the other day about what we've discovered about turning water into fire and back into water again. I kind of have no science, chemistry, physics, biology background.
Mm-hmm.
I did a degree in business studies, and but the answers have come to me since starting all of this journey with starting with buying some rods, and then months later now, it's been massive, but then answers have come to me out of nowhere, like you were saying. I don't know where this is coming from, but I think it's this, right?
Right.
And I'm getting that as well, but with technology and physics questions.
Absolutely. So do you know Dr. Keshe's work? you ever heard of Dr. Kesh?
Kesh found the plasma. Yeah, yeah, GANs. Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Because that's just showing up in my life, and I'm
yeah,
now playing with GANs technology around
yeah,
fruit trees, and anyway,
yeah.
they just we had another session. What was it, yesterday? They arrived, and we did some more work with them. So
Mm,
they just showed up. So
that's
uh,
interesting. Plasma.
let me just see if I can give you their website here.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm actually very good friends with a chap that was working at the Kesh Foundation, and he's now working with us.
oh,
Uh,
great.
yeah, so he's shown me all his GANs, and he's even got GANs connected to his refrigerator. That's probably lowering his power consumption by about 50%.
Wow.
Uh,
I mean, this is all new to me, although I've been working with similar technology, and now I'm looking at combining these technologies together. Now, I don't see the website on there, Sarah.
Yeah, it's harmony11holistic.org.
Okay, great.
yeah, it's really interesting. This is plasma.
Oh, there.
Yeah.
So it's harmony11holistics.org.
Okay.
I'll just type that in to
Mm,
the chat.
right.
I
Right.
mean, I don't. These guys are experimenting, but it's fun for me because I get to play with them. They literally show up at my house, and
Oh,
we get to
I've
do
got
this
a.
stuff, right?
I'm going to send you a video actually, which I received, which is like in the video you see what I think is a wormhole develop, and it's a GANS, right?
Right.
And actually, the video camera is all melting, and it looks like someone's put some visual effect on the video, but it's not. It's that you think you're tripping when you're looking at this video. I'll send it to you. It's basically
So what's the difference between that and monatomic gold then?
see,
Or do you know?
I don't know. I don't know,
I
but
mean, the
what?
monatomic gold disappears and reappears. Like it goes interdimensional and then reappears, and and then
Yeah,
which is the same as what you're going to have with the gateway in the center or wherever that gateway is in that stone circle. It's like it appears and doesn't, disappears, like as it shifts dimensions, then reappears. I mean,
yeah. Like what is the Bermuda Triangle? Where did the ships and the planes go? Like
exactly.
they disappeared, and I think people have disappeared through the gate of the gods and maybe never came back, or
Oh, absolutely. I agree with
uh,
you totally.
but then like I feel like I'm on a point where uh, we're nearly near to discovering this, because we're
Yeah.
getting closer, and then at the same time. The Russian science fair, and it's really interesting with Russia. My partner's Russian, but you can do a university degree in dowsing in Russia. Do you know
Yes,
that?
you can. I have
Um,
a friend who has, you might want to look at this, other way around, okay, is his Facebook group in dowsing.
mm,
And he gets at it a very analytical, mine's more intuitive, his is more scientific, rational, because his training is Russian, right?
mm,
And so he has the Russian background towards. And if you go to Germany and you look at their Y rods, they have color coded all the way down the length of the Y rod, and each one of those color codes is where you hold it for certain different things that you want to know. I mean, in some countries, they've got so rational about their dowsing. It's really amazing stuff, right?
mm. Yeah,
I just do it.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah. But what I mean is that the universities, the institution of the country understands it, accepts it, advances it scientifically with the
yes,
physics, and then that's why in their science fairs they're levitating rocks with
right.
sound waves and vibrations, and it's amazing physics they're doing. I just was speaking to a guy yesterday in our kung fu class who's planning to go to university and do physics. I was like, no, go to Russia and do your degree there,
Yeah.
but yeah, they're phenomenal difference in how it's accepted in academia, and so that's my goal actually, is to bring it here to England, and it should be a university degree in England, and I'd love it to be, and that's even talking to a university to potentially change direction and start teaching
Association in England.
I don't know. My partner is saying, have you got contacted the British Dowsing Association at all?
Yeah. Well, in fact, the lady that was pretty much running the BSD quit, and joined my company. But then she was doing part time, and then she does geomancy, and stuff like that. Similar stuff to what you do, I guess. And her 1 day a week, and then within 4 months, her 1 day a week thing had blown up. So she messaged me one day saying, "Look, I'm really sorry, I have to resign because my geomancy thing courses or whatever I've designed have blown up." I was like,
What's her name?
Faye Semple.
Very simple.
Yeah, so she was running the BSD, and then I think I may even have discovered her through the group as well on Facebook, Dowsing and Energy Healing group. And then she'd post videos and talk about stuff, and I was fascinated with everything she was saying. It was amazing. It was like, wow, there's so many interesting things she was talking about. So yeah, Faye, no longer with us, unfortunately, but she's an amazing woman, and like a geomancer, dowser,
Right.
and she's the one that kind of proved to me that you can douse for future events, so long as they're kind of within your world, let's say, rather than too much probability and
Right.
involved.
Right.
Yeah. Which was when I discovered that, I felt quite comforted about life in general, because then I realized, oh well, if there's an Akashic record, if there's a future that's written for me and everyone else that can be divined in a way today, then I needn't worry about anything anymore. It's
No,
going to
you
happen.
just basically all you need to do is show up.
Yeah, just show up. Yeah, exactly. And then when yesterday, when you were telling me about just, it's so simple, just the 0 point, it's, don't overcomplicate it, just ask and make it simple. I was like, yeah, this all seems to make sense. And then I was looking on YouTube about people, even in America's Got Talent. There's a guy levitated in front of the judges and in front of America's Got Talent. Went on there like a Tibetan Buddhist looking guy, but he wasn't. He was a American looking Tibetan guy, and if you can go on to see it on America's Got Talent. And then he did lots of very strange and almost disturbing preparation, where he's going like this, things like that, right? And then he goes on stage, and it takes him some time, and then the judges press the button and the cross, to get rid of him. And then if you just stay there, and then he suddenly goes boom and levitates.
Right.
I'm like, whoa, how is that?
Did he have a stick?
I think he had a stick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that
I've
a
seen
trick?
the dude before. It's I don't know what the stick has to do with it. Maybe it's like his gyroscope, so he doesn't fall over.
Well,
But
yeah.
it's
And then, did you see the other video with the magician who went to Tibet, and he went to see a guy and he said, "Look, I've come here to ask you about this levitation. We've heard you can levitate, and I don't expect you to teach me anything about how you do it, but all I ask is, can I witness it? And then he was like, well, you've come here, you've shown me your magic, and you've come a long way, and I will try to do it, but I need you to stand away so you don't interfere with my energy here,
Mm-hmm.
And then the guy levitates himself, and then I was just like, wow, I mean, is that real? And I think it is. And I'm sure people can raise their vibrations to a level where they could do that and become light, like reversing
Right.
0 point energy as well in the physical. It's like, oh my God, this is all the matrix, isn't it? Like, is any of this real? In physics, it isn't. In vibrational physics or particle physics, we're waves.
Right.
We're waves, aren't we? So surely we can teleport somewhere. Surely we could levitate ourselves. Could we even fly if we want to? How much? What do we have to do with this to get there? And I don't think it's thinking more about it. I think it's not thinking about anything.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
Your brain is not your friend at that level. Your brain is really good to ask the questions. The answer comes from your intuition. Put the two together, I believe you have wisdom. So it's like dowsing, and the reason dowsing is so powerful because your intellect is asking the question, but your intuition is coming like in that. If you open up that book that you just got with John Living, you'll see the graph inside of it that shows you the different levels of consciousness that a master has when he's meditating or whatever. And you see that when you're dowsing, dowsing allows you to descend through all those levels, brain levels, right, to delta X to get the answer. So, and it's the only method where you're in all those levels
I see,
simultaneously in order to have that.
That's this one.
Yeah, there you are.
Yeah. So it's saying at the low hertz frequencies, you're dousing deep sleep, dreaming sleep, meditation, lucid dreaming.
So look how deep you go.
Yeah, very, very deep. I mean, this is why I think I had some physical changes and I also then looked around, and it seems to be a common thread that when some people can get headaches or some sort of reaction after tuning in and starting to learn dowsing, right? Did you get much of that in your experience or with anyone?
Say that again.
Have you had any experience with people who have started doing dowsing and then got some physical changes, negative ones, maybe headaches or lack of sleep or something like that?
Well, so there was, a whole bunch of comments around 995, how people were doing 995 and they had some toxic results, as they were clearing, or they had more pain where they didn't have pain before, but then it cleared because they put their body into a healing crisis. So, yeah, and I think again, you could set up the parameters for that. Like right now, I'm in the middle of a parasite cleanse, and I'm saying, please do this at the level in which I can begin to operate, right? Or I'm not overwhelmed by the toxicity. So, I mean, you can put the parameters in so that you don't get blown away with what's happening. Because you're right, when you start to clear your body, whether it's through dowsing, energetically through dowsing or parasite cleanse or whatever, there's going to be toxicity as it's being released, right?
Right. And that's what the initial, maybe first, maybe 3 or 4 weeks was like for me.
Yeah.
And after the 21-day clearing, I had a break from it all just to ground myself back into, my normal life, because this seemed like I was in a dream for that long. The whole day-to-day existence was completely different to normal consciousness.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of people found that when they went on, I mean, when I looked at what's the 21 day and found that, well, actually it's anywhere from 30 to 60 to create a new habit. And I encourage people to go from 21 days on. I had one person who sort of checked in from 21, 22 on to 30, and she was getting deeper and deeper results as she kept on going. It was really quite amazing.
Was that Sharon, by the way?
Yeah, that was Sharon.
Yeah, because we were doing it at the same time and sort of.
Oh, you were? Okay.
Yeah, we were doing it at the same time. We were like the 2 people on the group going, yeah, I did today, and then we was, it'd be good to catch up with her to see what's going on now.
That was amazing because she encouraged a lot of people. People were saying, well, what's the 21, like people didn't know what the 21-day clearing was, or, it was very, very helpful.
Well, the guy...
She actually helped do, I'm about to release the new deep clearing, and she was the one that actually reworded it slightly and made it more user-friendly, and I haven't got back to her and thanked her, and it's been like almost 5 or 6 months that she's done this, and I finally got around to looking at it and spending some time with it and releasing it. I'm going to be charging $25 for the new one. Don't ask me why, but I've decided that that the donation and giving it away for free, we're going to shift it just for a bit, have people pay for it for a while. So that's what I've decided to do. So the new one is available thanks to her and her input.
I'm glad, because the old one, I was running out of breath on a few. Some of them were very long.
Well, this is still run on the breath. I did. Yeah, I didn't make them any shorter. Yeah, those are the longest run-on sentences known to man. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, the guy who responded to my original request for assistance for my brother, advised me to do that 21-day clear. That's why I did the 21-day clearing.
Oh, you're amazing. So who is this dude? Can you share that?
Yeah, it's a chap called Nahendra. He's part of the group. His name on Facebook is Bangalore Nahendra.
And how do you spell that? Could you type it into the chat?
Yeah. I think you're.
And I gave you a couple links there in the chat.
Yeah. He's seemingly able to get information from a Kashuk record, and then
Right.
I've sort of looked at how I could do that as well.
Yeah. And how have you been able to do that?
I think I'm getting there, because I've started to, like, I found a technique, for example, to get into a really hypnotic state very quickly, which was about shutting my eyes and kind of like rolling my eyes back to the point where it hurts, so like that, kind of like trying to roll your eyes back, but with your eyes lids closed.
Yeah.
And with a few deep breaths, I could get into almost like a hypnotic state very quickly now, where I can really shut off everything else and I'm in the zone, And then from then on, I was trying to create a visualization of something. It could be walking up a staircase or down a staircase, or it could be walking on.
Yeah, so do you want me here? Let me give you something.
Yeah.
For your homework. So go to the stone circle, right?
Mm-hmm.
You do your greetings, take some tobacco, or maybe not tobacco. I could ask, what sort of offering do you want at the stone circle? Is it cedar? Like maybe, do you have cedar in your area? Do you have cedar trees?
Oh, I'm not sure. Probably, yeah.
I'm just like, or there might be yew. It may be
yew. Oh, there's yew trees everywhere. Yeah, there.
Okay, so it may be yew. Most likely it's yew. Let me just ask. Yeah, it's yew. So take some yew, or maybe some dried yew, and burn it in a clamshell or in a shell, or some sort of smoke, whatever, right?
Wow, I'm going to send you a picture soon, which is what I find left there is apples, shells, bits of wood. This is what people leave there. Sorry, back to the old lady down the road. When we met each other there, she was walking her dog, and she goes there every day to pray at the stones, right? So, and she's lived there for 50 years. And then I was telling her about a friend of mine whose grandmother, apparently, according to him, was a white witch, and she could levitate stones, right? And then she said, "Oh, white witches meet here every year." And I was like, "Really?" I was like, "Okay, this is all getting too much now." Because she lived there for 50 years, so she knows everything that goes on there, And then there's
she's like the guardian. So you could ask her, excuse me, but what sort of prayers do you do? Interview her. She would be amazing to talk to, right?
Well, she's just a resident, a lady that's lived there, and
I know, but she's the gate person.
I don't know. Maybe she was. She knows more than she was letting on. But
she knows pretty much. Let me tell you.
Well, we were asking. I was asking her, like, "Do you have any idea how these stones got here? What their history is?" And stuff. She's like, "No, not really, no." But then,
she's just testing you out. That's all.
Well, she was complaining about the people that come and camp when it's winter.
Yeah, make a mess and don't clean up.
Yeah, they make a mess and don't clean up, and then me and her are the people that go there and pick up the beer cans and the things that get left
clean
around.
up after these idiots, right?
Yeah. So, but yeah, by the way,
therefore you have something in connection with her,
yeah.
And she understands that if you're doing that work, that's what she does, right?
But
so she's more liable if you, if you said something like, I just wanted to know that this is pretty strange. I made a wish, blah blah, and da 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 da. You watch her open up. I bet you she'll open up.
You reckon? Okay, I'm going to try that.
She needs some clues from you about, are you just a bloke down the street like the ordinary Joe? She ain't going to talk to you. It's too mystical, right? But if you give her some clues that know more about this, then she's going to feel comfortable about talking to you about it.
Maybe. I mean, I said I think they were doing some sort of rock levitation, or maybe there were giants involved in moving stones and other stuff. And so, yeah. But one thing I could say about this area, that I stumbled across it in a way because I was looking for a house to rent, right? I had to move out my house and I had to rent a new house. And I thought, okay, let's look at it on a map now. And I just want to live in a bit that's surrounded by green in the most remote bit I could possibly find, right? So I found one house for rent there. And I went down there, and then down my road, you're like driving into Jumanji. You know, it's like on a single country lane, about a mile into a country park. That's where I live, right? This is where it is. And there's some houses around there, and people live around there. Not a big community, it's a small village, but everyone is amazingly nice there. So nice, it's like ridiculously nice. There's healing centers, there's druids and things like that. This is like this little bubble there, you know, around this area where the stone circle is. And it's really interesting. Please come visit one day if you can.
Well, I would love to. I mean, my partner is born in Rugby, right?
Rigby. Oh, really? Okay.
Rugby. And
Rugby.
her, Rugby. And her dad was a master at that school, Rugby.
Oh, wow.
So
okay,
we do go back periodically.
Oh, well, this is one of many interesting sites in England. And in fact, we're only 5 minutes away. There's another stone circle, Addiscombe Stone Circle there. And there's all sorts of places around.
So what's yours one called?
Coldrum Long Barrow.
Coldrum?
Coldrum Long Barrow. Yeah. And can I tell you what happened once there?
Oh yeah, go for it.
You know, I do martial arts. We do traditional kung fu and qigong, wudang tai chi, so with my new friend who's a martial artist, he's a phenomenal martial artist. He's actually working on a big blockbuster movie at the moment, you know, being filmed. Anyway, I invited him to come down because he shared a strong interest in the stones. So I said, come down. He lives in the Midlands. So I said, come down to Kent and come and stay with me a weekend, and we'll go there, right? This little weekend of him coming down turned into a martial arts seminar where, you know, ended up about 12 of us ended up coming there, and we did training at the Stone Circle, right? So under his instruction. But then what I did was there's a Coldrum Stones group on Facebook, right? So I posted it on there saying, oh, we're doing this event there. If this interests anyone, please join us, right? And we had permission from the National Trust, who are the owners of the site as well. They were very happy in the park, and the ranger as well. They were like, yeah, we've got no problem. Just check it with the ranger. I rang the ranger. He's like, yeah, I've got no problem with you doing that. Just make sure you don't leave rubbish or anything. And I was like, no, don't worry. I'm the guy that cleans up the place. And I was like, can I mow it? He was like, no, don't mow it. I was like, okay, no problem. So anyway, the old lady's husband who passed away used to be the guy that used to mow it there, right? The grass there, and look after the site. And he's
why
like,
didn't he want you to mow it?
why? Well, they just used to look after it, but the ranger didn't want me to mow it because of the summer solstice event. Because every summer solstice people camp there for the sunrise. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And apparently, I think the sunrise aligns at some point with the stones in some way, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, this is what happened. We then get an email, a message on Facebook to our Kung Fu school from a chap who says, I am representing a circle of magicians who are sacred guardians of the site. And you must not do your event as planned and do this event at your peril, he said in the email. Anyway, we all sort of looked at it and thought, this is extremely weird. And we looked at his profile picture on Facebook, and he was a Morris dancer, right? And I'm like, okay, this is all bizarre now. Our event was on a Saturday, and it was meant to start at 10:30, but we changed it at the day before, and it ended up starting at 11:30. But no one told Steve. So Steve was there at 10:30, and he was waiting by the stones along with a group of 7 magicians who were waiting for us to turn up. So Steve rings me and says, where are you guys? And I'm like, didn't anyone tell you we're starting at 11:30? He's like, no, but there's a load of magicians here, weird looking people waiting for us. So we now walking from my house, which is 10-minute walk or so to the Stone Circle, and then we get there, and then he recognizes my Sifu because his face is on the Facebook page, right? So he goes up straight up to him and says, you should not be doing the event here, blah, 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 blah. And my super says, well, we have permission from National Trust, and if you have a problem, please, contact their office. I'm sure they'll, please deal with them. They've given us permission, And then what he does was, there's a very, very old tree that's probably more than 500 years old by the stones, right? Beautiful tree, and people hang their wishes and their pendulums and all sorts of things they tie to the tree, and little rolled up notes and things like that, pictures of loved ones that have passed, and they tie them to the tree, right? So this tree, big beautiful tree, has got loads of nice things hanging on it, which is just there with the stones, right? So this guy then goes, this group just huddle off, right? And the sort of leader guy then goes to the tree. He's putting one hand like that to the tree, and then one hand like that towards us, and we start doing our thing, and then he stands there for about 5 minutes with his eyes closed doing that, and that was it. So that was it. But then I was like, why would they have a problem with us doing qigong and tai chi at this site? Who are sacred guardians of the site, and why are they magicians, and why do they do Morris dancing? It's all very weird. It's all very weird. But I kind of, I got the guy had a sort of a mad, crazy look in his eye, so crazy eyes, and made a crazy sort of death threat almost to us about doing the event at our peril. And when Sifu came back after talking to us, I was like, what happened? What did he say? He was like, well, don't worry. He felt my energy, and then he just, knew he couldn't do anything or all this stuff. But I don't know if he was trying to spell cast on us or do something. But as soon as I saw him stand by the tree and do that, right, both me and my partner decided, it was almost in our minds, we were like, vroom, and we covered the whole place in a dome of white light, in our minds, and said, no, you're not going to do anything to any of us, whatever magic you're doing, you can't affect any of us, while he was doing that. And we just cracked on with our event, and he went away. So, but that was just a weird experience,
Wow.
What could that have been about?
Yeah, who knows? I don't know.
I don't know. But I think one observation is, though, if I think people potentially could get into dowsing, and this is one of the reasons why I've tried to stick with water and healing, only with it. Not, I could have got better and practiced more magic, and try to impress people with this wonderful magic stuff. But for what good is that,
Exactly.
Exactly.
That's where you get the kickback, by the way, that people were talking to you about the wishes, right? And you don't go to the stone circle and do wishes because you get kickback. Well, doing the magic part is where you get the kickback, because all the magic is available in the moment when you need it, right? Like if you need to lift a car off a person that's been run over by the car, believe me, you'll go up and lift the car off the person. Or if you need a teletransport to emergency hospital because your loved one is in an operation, you will be there beside them in that operation, right? If you need to send healing to somebody, like you needed me to, you will be there, right? Independent of the state of awareness. So what I'm saying is all those magical gifts are available to you, and you will be able to use them if and when they're needed. But otherwise, you're showing off, right? And in the whole tradition of that you come from, whenever you show off any of your skills as a martial artist, you're in trouble. Your master is going to come down really heavy on you, because you're not allowed to do that, right?
Yeah, well, there's no ego involved in the martial arts. As soon as you bring that in, or if you bring that into the dowsing as well, it doesn't work.
That's right.
Yeah, kind of like being at a completely 0 point with the martial arts. We even talk about the 0 point of a punch. When someone throws a punch, there's a point at where the force is 0, and you can move it down with your little finger. Except for here, you can't. So we always go for the 0 point in kung fu as well.
Exactly.
And to be in the meditative state, almost in the moment, because you don't know what's going to come at you, and you have to be in that complete state of relaxation to express in martial arts as well. There's so much parallel between martial arts and dowsing.
Absolutely. Dowsing. Yeah, and I mean, I come from a Dao background, so I mean, I've done a little bit of, not martial arts, but a little bit of Tai Chi and a little bit of what the other one is.
Qigong.
Qigong, yeah. So I'm no master in those areas. But talking about that sort of thing, I need to go have lunch, and I'm off to the gym. I go to the gym 3 times a day. I mean, not 3 times a day, 3 times a week.
I was going to say.
But, yeah, so that's how I stay fit, right? And do my thing. So I need to run, but I really enjoyed this conversation. I'm sure we didn't get all your questions answered, did we?
Well, there's loads more we can talk about. Yeah, I've got millions of questions. I've got too many.
Oh, I'll get them all together, and if you want to do a more firm interview that you can post up to your group, or if you want to use this one, choose whatever way that you'd like to do it. I'm going to get to editing that last healing hour.
Yeah.
And get it to you as soon as I can as well.
Yeah, I was going to just put these 2 together and share it for people on YouTube or whatever, so that they can digest what I've.
Okay, great, and I'll do that. I'll get that done as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And let's get back together. This has been.
Well, I'm inspired to know you, and I love what you're doing. I can see it's fantastic, and I now feel like I've been given a gift, and so I want to help other people who want to learn how to divine water or energy heal or just progress in that. I just want to introduce it to them, because there is, I feel my role in life is to bring this consciousness, spirituality, whatever dowsing phenomenon into the universities, into the places where we're already working, and I've got the ears of the professors, who are open-minded now, to this. So I'm talking about energy healing and vibrational physics and dowsing with professors in top universities in England, and so it seems like now people are ready for this, Whereas
I think they are.
Yeah,
and I think that's great. And we need to, like, the next generation. I mean, in our dowsing group, it's just a bunch of old fogies sort of stuck in the mud, and not that the mud isn't good to be stuck in. But we need the next generation to understand this. Though, just a quick thing before I go, when you're talking to kids about why should they learn how to dowse, ask them if they do true or false questions. Do they have to do true or false examinations, right? And if they say yes, then teach them how to do the yes or no.
Yeah.
And they get it right away. Oh, gee, I can really use this stuff. It makes it just busts through a big smile on their face when you give them this little hint about how they can ace their true or false questions, right?
Well, my children are getting all of this from an early age, and they even can read my mind and work out what number I'm thinking of. We play a game where we're driving in the car, and we kind of douse for the color of the car that's going to pass us next.
Oh, great.
Right. And the kids are getting it right, they're just, and I'm like, come on, don't guess, and they get it. And my daughter especially is so good at this, right? Unbelievably good at this. My son is a bit sort of not so much, but she's really good at this. And it's almost, she's a natural,
That's wonderful.
So,
well, I got to run, and let's connect back together. Yeah, and you can just private message me, and we'll see if we can come up with another time. Okay?
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Tyhson. Thank you. And
thank you. Enjoyed every minute of it. Bye for now.
Bye-bye. Take care. Bye-bye.